The sun had barely risen over the sleepy village, casting long shadows across the frost-kissed fields. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, and the lowing of cows echoed from the barnyard. For Anna, the milkmaid, the morning had begun like any other, fetching water, tending to the animals, and preparing for the day's labor. But beneath the routine, a storm of uncertainty had been brewing in her heart for months. The villagers, as usual, had been cruelly vocal. They whispered in hushed tones whenever she passed by, eyes darting to her with a mix of amusement and judgment. Couldn't she find anyone scarier? They chuckled one morning, watching her hurriedly leave the barn with pails of milk. Out of desperation, it seems. Anna ignored them. She had grown accustomed to their laughter and sideways glances. Life had taught her that there was little she could do to change the opinions of people who thrived on judgment. Yet, even knowing that, the sting lingered when she thought of the man she had agreed to marry. He wasn't imposing, nor was he wealthy. His hands were rough, his clothes simple, his face unremarkable. To the villagers, he was nothing, an easy target for mockery. Anna, however, saw something they didn't. A quiet gentleness, a steady reliability that promised stability in a life that had long been uncertain. Still, even her own heart trembled with doubt. The wedding had been a small affair, held in the village church with only a handful of witnesses. The priest's voice had echoed solemnly, blessing their union, but Anna barely heard the words. Her thoughts were elsewhere, swirling with fear and a strange sense of relief. She was marrying not for love, but for necessity, for protection, for a roof over her head, for a chance to escape the relentless judgment of the village. After the ceremony, as they stepped outside into the crisp air, the villagers' laughter followed them like a shadow. Children pointed, adults whispered, and someone even let out a mocking whistle. "Well, Anna, good luck with him," a woman called, laughter heavy in her voice. Her husband, who had been silent throughout the ordeal, squeezed her hand gently. His touch was warm, grounding her amidst the humiliation. "Ignore them," he said softly. "We have our life to build." Anna nodded, though her heart still fluttered with insecurity. She had convinced herself that survival was more important than pride, but even survival had its price. She spent that night in their small shared room, listening to the creaks of the old house and the soft breathing of her new husband. He didn't speak much, but the quiet reassurance in his presence slowly began to ease her fears. Days passed, and Anna settled into her new life. She continued her work in the barn and the fields, often with him by her side. Villagers still whispered and pointed, but slowly, the ridicule began to fade into background noise. She focused on the small victories: a successfully milked cow, a well-tended garden, a shared meal prepared together in their modest kitchen. Yet, every glance from the villagers reminded her of their judgment. At the market, they would comment under their breath, shaking their heads. Couldn't she have chosen better? They murmured. Why settle for someone like him? Anna would keep her eyes down, but inside, a quiet defiance began to grow. Perhaps they didn't understand, and perhaps they never would, but she didn't need their approval. She began to notice her husband's quiet strength more each day. He was patient with the animals, careful with her, and respectful of her work. He never boasted, never tried to assert dominance. He simply existed beside her, steady as the rhythm of her life demanded. And in that steady presence, Anna found a sense of safety and partnership she had not expected. One morning, as the village awoke to a thick fog rolling over the fields, Anna found herself laughing at a small mishap. One of the cows had tipped over a bucket, splattering milk across the floor. Her husband chuckled softly beside her, and she realized that for the first time, she was seeing a man not through the lens of ridicule, but through understanding. The villagers could laugh, whisper, and judge all they wanted. She had made a choice born of necessity, yes, but necessity had brought her something unexpected: respect, quiet love, and a partnership built on mutual care. And though the road ahead would be filled with challenges, Anna felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a small, stubborn flame that would not be extinguished by mockery or doubt. As the fog lifted and sunlight touched the frost-laden fields, Anna walked through the barnyard with her husband, side by side. She held her head high now, the whispers of the village fading into insignificance. They might laugh at her choice, but she knew something they could never see. In a world full of judgment and fleeting opinions, she had found someone who would stand beside her. not for appearances but for the life they could build together. And in that quiet, modest barnyard, amidst the smell of hay and the soft lowing of cows, Anna realized that perhaps, out of desperation, she had discovered something far more enduring. The strength to survive, the courage to endure, and the chance to carve happiness from the unexpected. The mornings in the village had grown colder, but Anna had learned to rise early, long before the sun painted the fields with golden light. Her husband moved quietly beside her, fetching pails and leading the cows to the barn. Even the villagers, whispers and laughter outside could not shake the rhythm they were building together. Couldn't she find anyone scarier? Someone snickered from across the yard as Anna stepped into the morning frost. She didn't flinch this time. Her husband's hand brushed hers briefly, a small, grounding reassurance. That simple touch reminded her of a truth the villagers would never understand. Life wasn't about appearances or approval, it was about survival, partnership, and the courage to keep going. The barn was warm compared to the biting chill outside. Cows lowed softly, shifting in the hay, and the smell of straw filled the air. Anna's husband worked methodically, cleaning stalls and adjusting feed, never once complaining. Anna watched him, noticing small gestures, how he always made sure a calf had enough water, how he brushed a stubborn cow with patience, how he waited for her when she stumbled over chores. The villagers' judgment was loud, but inside the barn, it faded into insignificance. Later, as they rested briefly, Anna's husband handed her a small mug of warm milk. She accepted it with a grateful smile, taking a moment to appreciate the ordinary act of kindness. "Thank you," she murmured. He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "We're in this together. That's what matters." The couple ventured into the village later that day to sell milk and gather supplies. The market was crowded, and Anna felt the weight of the villagers' stares immediately. Whispered remarks and snickers followed them like shadows. Did she really marry him? A woman muttered under her breath. Why would she settle for that? Anna's fingers tightened around the handle of her basket, but she held her head high. Her husband remained calm, steady, and dignified. Together, they moved through the market with purpose, ignoring the gossip. Each step reinforced a quiet truth. They were not defined by the opinions of others. At one point, a man from the village approached, his expression smug. "You're lucky," he agreed, he said, glancing at Anna's husband as though measuring his worth. "Most women would never accept someone like you." Anna's husband didn't rise to the provocation. He simply nodded politely and continued arranging their milk bottles for sale. Anna, surprised at his composure, realized that the strength she had feared he lacked was there, quietly present in every measured action. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Anna and her husband returned home. Their small cottage glowed with warmth, a stark contrast to the icy scrutiny of the village. They cooked a simple meal together, sharing laughter over a spilled pot of stew and the baby's soft coos from the corner crib. It was during moments like these that Anna began to see the depth of their partnership. Her husband's presence was not flashy or imposing, but it was steadfast. In a world that had mocked and judged her, he had become an anchor, a quiet, reliable force that allowed her to breathe and plan, even in small increments. The villagers' laughter could not reach them here. Inside their home, there was only the hum of life, the warmth of shared labor, and the quiet resilience that had slowly begun to define them. Anna understood now that respect was earned not through grandeur or intimidation but through patience, loyalty, and the willingness to share both burdens and small joys. One evening, as the stars began to dot the sky, Anna stepped outside with her husband to check the barn one last time. The cold air was sharp, but the night felt alive with possibilities. "Do you ever wonder what they think of us?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Let them think what they will. We know the truth. We know what matters." Anna smiled, the weight of their struggles feeling lighter in the shared silence. She realized that happiness wasn't about the villagers' approval, it was about the small victories. A day without mishap in the barn, a night when the baby slept peacefully, a meal cooked without incident, and the quiet presence of someone who truly cared. As they returned home, Anna reflected on how far she had come. She had married not for love but necessity, yet in necessity, she had discovered a depth of human connection and resilience she hadn't expected. Life in the village remained difficult, the whispers and judgment persistent, but she and her husband had begun building something stronger than mockery or doubt. A life of quiet strength, mutual respect, and unexpected tenderness. By the time they settled in for the night, with the baby asleep and the cottage bathed in the soft glow of the hearth, Anna felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The villagers might never understand her choice, but that no longer mattered. She had a partner who stood beside her, a child who depended on her, and a newfound belief in her own resilience. In that small, modest cottage, surrounded by simple comforts and the rhythm of daily life, Anna understood a profound truth. Even in desperation, it was possible to find strength, companionship, and a life worth living. And though the villagers would always have their laughter and judgments, she had learned to rise above them, quietly, confidently, and without apology. Winter had settled over the village, coating the fields in white and turning the paths into slippery trails. The air was crisp, biting at cheeks and hands alike, but Anna felt a quiet warmth as she stepped outside with her husband. The barnyard, once filled with judgmental whispers from the villagers, now echoed with the rhythm of their work, the steady steps of cattle, and the soft laughter of two people learning to live in harmony. The villagers still watched, still whispered, but the tone had begun to shift. They saw the couple moving together with confidence and care, the milkmaid and her unassuming husband quietly proving their worth not through spectacle, but through diligence and resilience. Children peeked from windows, mothers nodded in quiet acknowledgement, and even the men who had once mocked now exchanged subtle glances of respect. Anna's husband, who had always been understated, revealed a side of himself the villagers had never expected. He repaired fences with patience, organized deliveries of milk efficiently, and offered thoughtful solutions to problems in the fields. Anna watched him quietly, realizing that the man she had married out of necessity was becoming her equal in every sense: steadfast, capable, and unwavering. One afternoon, as the sun reflected off the snow and glinted like diamonds across the frozen pond, a crisis struck. One of the cows had slipped in the icy barnyard and injured its leg. Panic stirred among the few villagers present, but Anna and her husband acted immediately. She guided the cow gently, calming it with soft words, while he prepared a makeshift splint using tools and rope. Their teamwork was seamless, their movements fluid and coordinated, the result of weeks of quiet learning and understanding. By the time the villagers had gathered, the cow was stabilized, the immediate danger averted. Whispers turned to admiration, and laughter faded into murmurs of respect. One of the elder women, who had been particularly harsh, approached Anna with a hesitant smile. I didn't think you two could manage like this," she admitted softly. "But you've proven us wrong." Anna looked at her husband, who simply nodded with a humble smile. "It's not about proving anyone wrong," he said quietly. "It's about doing what's right." That evening, back in their warm cottage, Anna and her husband sat together by the fire. The baby slept soundly in the crib, his tiny chest rising and falling with peaceful rhythm. The couple shared a simple meal, and Anna felt a profound sense of gratitude. The laughter of the villagers, once so painful, no longer mattered. They had found something far more important: trust, partnership, and mutual respect. The following days brought more challenges, but the couple faced them together, side by side. The milkmaid's hands were raw from hours of work, and her husband often stayed late into the night repairing equipment or chopping wood. Yet each evening, when they reunited by the fire, the bond between them had grown stronger. The villagers began to see it too: small gestures of care, teamwork, and devotion that no amount of gossip could diminish. One particularly harsh morning, a blizzard swept over the village, trapping the couple and their livestock in snowdrifts. While others panicked, Anna and her husband calmly guided the animals to shelter, secured the farmhouse against the storm, and tended to the baby with care and warmth. When the villagers finally emerged from their homes, they were astonished to see the couple standing tall, unshaken by the elements, and fully in control. It was in that moment that Anna realized something she hadn't allowed herself to acknowledge before. Necessity had led her to a man who, though unimpressive at first glance, possessed a quiet strength and integrity that no one else had. And in turn, her own courage, resourcefulness, and patience had transformed her into someone capable of facing any challenge. Together, they had become a force the village could neither ignore nor belittle. As the storm passed, the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the snow-covered village. The once whispering villagers now observed with a newfound respect. Children waved as Anna passed, and a few neighbors called out words of genuine admiration. Laughter remained, but it was no longer cruel, it was filled with acknowledgement of resilience and hard-won triumph. Anna returned to the cottage, carrying a basket of supplies. She paused at the doorway, glancing at her husband and their baby. A soft smile touched her lips. What had begun as a marriage born of desperation had evolved into something far richer, a partnership grounded in trust, courage, and unwavering support. The villagers' mockery had no power over the life they were building together. Sitting by the fire that evening, Anna held her baby close and watched her husband repair a broken chair with quiet concentration. She realized that happiness and respect were not granted by the opinions of others, they were forged in action, patience, and devotion. And in their modest home, warmed by firelight and filled with the soft breathing of their child, Anna felt a profound peace. The milkmaid who had once been ridiculed for marrying someone like him, had become a woman of strength and resilience. The husband, who had seemed ordinary to the world, had revealed extraordinary integrity and compassion. Together, they had turned necessity into triumph, and laughter into respect. Outside, the village settled into a quiet evening, snow glittering under the soft glow of lanterns. Inside the cottage, love, partnership, and determination burned brighter than any judgment. Anna kissed her husband gently on the cheek, whispering, "We did it. We proved ourselves, didn't we?" He smiled softly, nodding. "Yes, together." And in that modest home, amidst warmth, trust, and shared strength, the milkmaid and her husband finally understood the truth. Life's worth is not in appearances or public approval, but in the courage to endure, the heart to love, and the determination to rise together, against all odds.